Special thanks to everyone. I love you all. This is wonderful. Everything's wonderful. Everything's wonderful. Tell me why ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why ain't nothing but a bad train. Tell me why. The Egyptian steam motor locomotive. Egypt? Hey! Quick! Someone call Lara Croft, it's time to go tomb raiding! Don't think we've had Egypt before. Mr. Worldwide all over again. It's what I do around here. I try to talk about all the countries, but there's a lot of you people. Anyway, this is, as I said, a steam motor locomotive. We have discussed these in the past. The steam motors are basically just miniaturized steam engines. And the reason why you would want to have a bunch of little steam motors instead of just one massive steam engine is that it can be more efficient in some applications. They weren't super popular, but when they worked, they did work. And Egypt actually had a very, very, very specific reason for wanting to test out a steam motor locomotive. See, Egypt has some terrain that's very sandy. And sand is a problem for anything that has to move. I mean, nobody likes sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. For a normal steam locomotive, sand can be a maintenance nightmare, and the thought was that if they utilized more enclosed steam motors, it might minimize maintenance overall, because sand would have a much tougher time getting into the steam motors. Not a bad idea on paper. 4 of these engines were actually built by the North British Locomotive Company of Glasgow in 1937, in association with Sentinel actually, and they were meant for passenger service. They were numbered 24413 through 24416, and they were given to the Egyptian State Railways in 1938. Sentinel was the one who built the steam motors, and each locomotive had 2 of them. They independently powered the 2 driving axles. Sentinel's steam motors actually had already been proven to not need that much maintenance, and had favorable consumption rates for steam and lubricating oil. So again, on paper, this should have gone well. Except sand is sand, and no matter how hard you try, if you've ever been in any place with sand, look, it will find a way. It's going to get everywhere. Everywhere, even in places you wouldn't expect. And eventually, the sand did manage to worm its way into the steam motors. Something that was not supposed to happen, or at least not as bad as it was. And due to the enclosed nature of the steam motors, once sand got into them, it was really hard to get out. So, they actually did the opposite of what they were supposed to do. They were worse on maintenance, not better. They were taken out of service rather quickly, and though they were used during World War II a bit due to motive power shortages, it's not known what happened to them after that, though it is believed that they were all scrapped. I put them low on the list because I do feel that if they had been in pretty much any other kind of environment, they probably would have been alright, but they were meant to operate in the desert. You had one job. You couldn't do it. The Camden and Amboy Railroad 080 Monster. That's a... wow. And this is a very early steam locomotive. So again, I'm putting it a little lower on the list because it was 1837. There was still a lot of experimenting, and some people have gotten on my case about this, where sometimes I will put an experimental something on any of these lists. And apparently I shouldn't do that, because, well, experimenting is how you learn. And, you know, you're right. That doesn't mean I can't make fun of bad ideas and point them out. I can still talk about them. And very rarely will I ever call a designer of one of these little gadgets stupid. because often the people behind this kind of stuff aren't necessarily dumb. There are exceptions. They are trying to figure out what worked. That doesn't mean I can't make fun of what didn't work. And, well, in the monster's defense, it kind of worked, but the design used inclined cylinders, which drove a front lever that in turn drove the third axle via a connecting rod with bracing. Okay, why would they want to do it this way? I have no earthly clue. To call it weird would be a massive understatement, though perhaps they thought it would transfer the force better? Or maybe they didn't trust only one side rod, so they wanted more than one? I don't know, but it actually caused more problems than it solved. For one thing, it was more complicated because, I mean, look at it. And while it did offer the advantage of having the front two axles free to swivel to a limited degree, making it actually somewhat articulated, this was accomplished with the gearing between the two pairs of driving axles. Those gears were really stressed. All the time. So stressed that the teeth on the gears would actually break off. Now, admittedly, the monster is looked at as at least, well, independent thought. It was an interesting idea. It did not work, and was largely considered impractical, but it was fascinating and still is. And all but the original was actually rebuilt into, well, it still had that slanted cylinder thing going on, but it looked a bit more practical. This was believed to have been done sometime in the 1860s. They were remodeled as 460s, and the rear three axles were coupled in the normal way, simply retaining the weird slanted drive. But, to be fair, this did eliminate the troublesome gear issues that had plagued the original design, so these guys did kind of evolve into something that could be used. With their gears no longer breaking, they were functional steam locomotives, so I can't be too hard on them. They were kind of fixed. The Italian State Railway's Turbine locomotive of 1933. Oh boy, I'm talking about Italy, and I feel like you guys over in Italy get a little sensitive about this kind of stuff, because I have gotten comments before saying that whenever I bring up Italy, it seems like it's only bad things. Well, first of all, how much shade have I thrown at British Rail? I think the British have way more right to be mad at me at this point. Though, admittedly, I have talked about good things from their country, too. And I throw shade at everybody, especially on list of worst trains ever. I'm not saying Italy has never made a good locomotive, because, well, you have. And if you guys have any examples of good stuff, by all means throw it at me, and I'll see if I can put it on best trains ever. You know, it's just one of those things. I am not so nationalist that I pick and choose which countries I like and which countries I throw shade at. Like, I am an equal opportunity shade thrower over here. Except when it comes to the Dutch, because the Dutch harass me, so I don't like them as much as everybody else. But besides that, I have nothing against you, Italy. And I'm glad you guys are here. That being said, your turbine locomotive of 1933 was not very good, but to be fair, this was not Italy's first attempt at a turbine locomotive, and the original attempt was actually way earlier than you'd think. It was built in 1907, and it was a conversion of an old 060 tank engine. This would make it one of, if not the smallest turbine locomotive I've ever seen. It's a teeny tiny little baby, and it seems to be more designed as a test bed rather than anything else. Very little information regarding its performance is known, but it lasted 13 years before it was dismantled, so it couldn't have been that bad, and again, this was an experiment, and frankly, I think it's actually kind of cute. So, I mean, without knowing exactly how it performed, it's hard to say, and 13 years is definitely a lot longer than the vast majority of steam turbines I've ever talked about. Most of these don't even last 10, so, you know, good work, Italy. Your second attempt was a little bit more radical, though, and I don't even know what I'm looking at. What is this? What is happening? This is the Beluzzo Breda turbine locomotive, and y'all need to chill. This is unspeakable madness. Everything about this is ludicrous to me. It looks insane. It is such a monstrosity visually, and you may think I'm just judging a book by its cover, but the truth is I have no idea how this thing worked, or how well it worked, because no one seems to know. There just isn't a lot of actual documentation on this thing, but what is known is that the Italian State Railways actually wouldn't allow it to be run on the main line at all, which does not bode well for how reliable it may have been. But even that was better than the 1933 attempt. which was numbered 685.410. This was a rebuilt Type 685-262. It was meant for express service for the Italian state railways, and it had a steam turbine mounted at the front. It had no condenser, and it is known to have been tested at least once, and then never heard from again. Why? Well, apparently something was wrong with the design, because the turbine bearing seized up, which caused severe damage to the blades. It wasn't repaired. They just didn't bother with it after that. It broke almost immediately during the testing phase. So yeah, like most places, the whole steam turbine thing just didn't go super well for Italy. It's not like they're the only ones. Yeah, but they had that little tank engine. Hey, that was cute. I still like this thing. The Thuile Cabforward. What kind of monstrosity is this now? I feel like I am digging the bottom of the barrel to find the weirdest possible nonsense experimental locomotives I can possibly find. This was a one-off cab forward that was a 446 built in 1900 in France. It was to the design of one M. Thuile. Now why in the heck did this thing look so weird? Well, judging by the name, part of the idea was to make it a cab-forward design, which for 1900 would have been pretty ambitious. However, this thing has a pretty major problem, and that's the crew arrangement. The firebox is in the back, like with a typical regular steam locomotive, and they just stuck a cab in the front. In that way, the fireman and the driver are not in the same place, and therefore would struggle to communicate over the sound of a steam locomotive in between them. And it's not even like a camelback where they're, separated, but they're not that far apart. They are literally on opposite ends of this thing. And it was pretty long. Another problem was weight distribution. Only 39% of the weight was on the driving wheels, which is not a good ratio for adhesion purposes. It must have inhibited tractive effort in that regard. Also, with the cab in front of the boiler like that, how do they access the smoke box? For cleaning purposes? I mean, I guess they could take the cab off? They would almost have to be able to do that. But then again, the boiler itself was kind of weird. The wheel's boiler isn't circular. Lateral stays were fitted to hold the two sides together, and each side also appears to have been reinforced with some sort of girder. It's bizarre, and there doesn't seem to be any advantage to this layout in any way. It seems like there was just a lot of things about this locomotive that were done, because Thuile may not have known entirely what he was doing. Most of the mistakes on here are kind of amateur outlooks, things he just obviously didn't think about or didn't think were big deals, and it would come back to bite him because his invention totally killed him. For reasons that aren't clear, possibly due to an adhesion issue, the locomotive derailed on one of its trials and tossed poor Thuile into a line-side pole, which killed him. Although, this is only one account. Another account kind of paints him in a worse light, where he just leaned out too far, and then got hit by a pole that way. Either way, it would be his undoing, and without the will to promote it, no one wanted to persist with the design. It just didn't seem like the best way to make a cab forward, and frankly, it wasn't. When it comes to steam cab forwards, it's usually best to go with oil firing, because the crew then can at least be in the same place. Durango and Silverton numbers 1201 and 1202. Ooh, this is a very recent disaster. And looking at them, they look like perfectly serviceable diesels. Very nice livery. They're on wooden pallets, though. Oh, goodness, this is not going well already for them, is it? I actually kind of feel bad for these pair of twins because, well, it's not their fault their builders are completely inept. These were two custom-built MP2000 NGs, narrow-gauge diesel locomotives that were built by Motive Power and Equipment Solutions Incorporated, or MP&ES, of Greenville, South Carolina, sometime between 2018 and 2020. No one's quite sure on that. And they were built for the Durango and Silverton Narrow-Gauge Railroad in Durango, Colorado. They were rebuilt from two former Tri-Rail EMD F40 PHL-2s, which were standard gauge diesels, and they were originally supposed to enter service in 2021. However, instead, they were placed in indefinite storage due to a lawsuit between the railroad and MP&ES. Why? Well, frankly, the diesels were complete and total disasters. And I mean disasters. You're probably looking at two of the worst diesel locomotives ever constructed, which is embarrassing because they were actually rebuilds. And I just have this funny feeling that they probably worked just fine prior to that happening to them. The backstory here is that between June 1st and July 11th of 2018, a wildfire that was called the 416 fire was started and burned a total of 54,130 acres, 10 miles north of Durango, Colorado. Because of that fire, the railroad had to temporarily suspend operations, and after the fire was extinguished, there was a rumor that burning cinders and sparks from one of their steam locomotives actually started the fire, with many businesses and residents filing lawsuits against them, even though at that point they hadn't actually determined what had caused the fire at all. But to be fair, in July of 2019 it was determined that it was a cinder from one of their steam locos. It certainly wasn't on purpose, but that is something that can happen with steam locomotives in really dry environments, and railroads have to be mindful of that. Following those lawsuits, D and SNG announced they were making some major changes to their operations, including converting most of their operable steamers from coal to oil burners, which would remove the cinder issue. They would also acquire two new custom-built narrow-gauge diesel locomotives, 1201 and 1202. They were supposed to be delivered in late 2018 and early 2019, but mechanical issues and design flaws delayed delivery till September of 2020. But you'd think with the extra time they would make sure that the diesels actually, worked? You fools, you underestimate the ineptness involved in this situation. When they were finally delivered, it was discovered that the internals of these diesels was an absolute mess. There were a ton of design flaws, and there were missing parts. They were flawed and incomplete. The railroad was literally given two diesels that weren't even finished and had been delayed. They were furious over this and proceeded to file a lawsuit that wound up being so severe that MP and ES filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy on February 25th, 2022. During this, they actually are still delivering parts for 1201 and 1202 at a pretty slow pace. How many parts were missing on these things? Why did you even give them to the railroad in this kind of state? It's been years, and these aren't like out-of-use steam locomotives where you have to custom make a whole bunch of parts for them. They are diesels. I assure you, there are plenty of manufacturers well-versed in diesel parts. Even if these are custom built, and they are, to be fair, you cannot tell me it would take years to put it all together, especially when someone's paying you to do it. As of the making of this video, as far as my research shows, 1201 and 1202 are still sitting in storage, because they still don't have the parts they need to actually work. It's embarrassing. It's not known what's going to happen to them after that. If they get their parts, they might actually function, it's true, and maybe the railroad could use them. But this has gone on for so long that I wouldn't blame them if they were just sick of them and scrapped them anyway, or even sold them to another operator. But who the heck runs a business like this? I mean, honestly. You delivered on an unfinished product. Of course you got sued. And with that, a special thank you goes out to all my underwater train finders. Some Dude 267, Orange Glass, Royal Hudson 2860, Benjamin Owens, Panther Kitsune 131-232, Mr. Black Rose, Josh Johnson, Middle for Life Guy, Anzac A1, Arthur Roy, DM Trouble Typhoon, Tommy Rossini, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Joshua Long, Brian, Jack Carson's Railroad Videos, Major Klutz, Hayden DeGrow, Master of None, Dr. Racer 78, Crystal Morgan, Ohio Trucker 1, Lord Hoth 444, and Alaric Jaspers. Till next time, this is Darkness, Louis Dwellafond, farewell.